Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Fernie City Council held on May 19th, 2026. Gisukukit. We acknowledge the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleus First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleus and are members of Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. And for those watching at home, just to let you know, Councillor Ramanathan is here. He just has no video this evening, so you will hear him in the meeting. With that, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. and ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that the agenda of the May 19th, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I will ask for a mover and a seconder as well for the following recommendation: that the minutes of the April 21st, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion of those minutes? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll now invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. A speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to state their full name and community of residence.
Your Worship and Council, we have Chris English on our public participation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and Sergeant. I'm just here to speak online. It was under general operations, so I feel that covers a whole variety of things. So a couple issues I want to bring to Council's attention. It would be nice, I know Council is busy and everything, but to have the agenda posted at 5:15 when the meeting's at 6:30. If you ever wonder why you don't get lots of public participation or people here, that might be one of the reasons. I think you should at least give a day's notice. I realize it was a holiday yesterday, but you know, maybe post it on Friday, what's coming up on the meeting on Tuesday would be nice to know. And also too, under general operations, just something that come about in Sparwood, and I think it'd be valuable here in Fernie with the skate park, the dirt jumps. They had an emergency situation in Sparwood and they had to call 911 and ask for ambulance services and rescue and everything. And they couldn't, the 911 operator could not dispatch, even though the local paramedics and that knew where the skate park was, because there was no address posted. And I did go over and have a walk at the dirt park and at the skate park, and I don't see no physical address, and just maybe vinyl stickers on the pole somewhere or something. If there is an emergency like that would happen in Sparwood, that would be helpful, I think, to the 911 staff. Then also too, one thing the council needs to know about, I've only been in town here since yesterday. I come back, I was away for a few days, but you know, just going uptown today, into 3 businesses, and they all told me the same story, that the bylaw was in the business asking for their business license. Now with today's technology and everything else, don't you think it's easy enough in City Hall just to print out who hasn't paid their business license? Why are you using valuable members' time from the bylaw going in to ask the business, do you have a business license? You would know that by the printout at City Hall. I just really think when you talk about resources and time, this is time wasted and resources wasted. Then the other thing I'd just like to bring to your attention, when you do your council reports, you're sitting at home, you see different aspects. And what I see when I sit at home and watch these meetings, your council reports are always about I. This is what I did this week. This is what I did this week. We'd be nice to hear from members of council and mayor that what you've heard from the citizens this week. Maybe you can start bringing that into your council reports till your end of your term, because I'm sure every council member is approached in the community between meetings. Be nice to know what the community's feeling, not what you did or what you accomplished this week. It just seems to be the same repetitive things. I did this, I did that. That's just my perspective from the outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis. And just for clarity, Corporate Officer, for those watching at home, when is our agenda published typically?
According to the council procedure bylaw, it should be published by 4 p.m. on the Friday before the meeting.
Thank you.
That's at a minimum.
Thank you. Anyone online indicated they'd like to speak? Thank you. With that, we will move right into 6.1, delegations, quarterly report update from the RCMP, report from Staff Sergeant Nielsen. Welcome, Staff Sergeant. And I'd like to approach it a little differently this month, if you're comfortable with that. Council's received your stats, your quarterly report. And if council has any specific questions, happy to have you answer those questions. In addition, I'd like to give you the opportunity to talk about the detachment's policing priorities, and then give council a bit of insight into that. And then we can have some questions for that if you're comfortable with that.
Sure, absolutely. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you.
So in terms of the quarterly stats, does council have any specific questions? Councilor Artie Kelly.
I just wanted to ask Staff Sergeant, it feels like possibly crime is trending up, just from hearing and seeing things about the bike thefts and these types of things. I know sometimes, population growth or changes or different seasons or whatever might bring on some of that. Is that feeling accurate, or is that just an impression that's not accurate?
Well, it's a good question. Thank you. I think that there are certainly times in any community where you get to a point to where crime statistics or crime events are elevated. That could be for a number of different reasons. Recent events, obviously, with the bike thefts have been very well documented in social media, for example, and we've been contacted about that and been doing our own work trying to identify the person or persons involved in that particular theft. Recent example of some thefts like through off garages and carports and stuff like that, not really well publicized regionally, but certainly two subjects were located in Creston, and they were connected back to our area for some of the thefts involved in that. So there is a great deal of, cross work, I guess you could say, being done regionally with that. And that was probably from about a week and a half ago. In one case involving I think 2 females and a male that were well publicized, again, not only by us, but also just through social media. I'd be hesitant to say we're on the uptick. Certainly, I think there are certain events where things have become more apparent that, particularly with like property, that things are a bit more at risk than I think what generally speaking, some persons in the community may feel before, where they could just arbitrarily leave a valuable kind of exposed, if you wanted to put it that way, for say like a bicycle or a mountain bike or something, and not feel it was at risk. Certainly, I like that feeling in the community too as well. I think everybody would agree with that. But certainly, I think it's pointed more towards the fact of being, and again, I think a lot of people are being careful. There's one particular video that was published online, which obviously we've been contacted about and are investigating, where the person got off like a bike lock in a carport within Fernie here. Certainly that was something that's troubling, and nobody wants to see those things. I think it's a very healthy thing, though, that the person in that video, and in particular the case, I think it was a Ring camera, which captured the incident. And I think while people don't have to go over top with things, I think it's important that, you look at your own situational factors at your house and look at potential security cameras and those things if you're feeling uncomfortable about that. And certainly we would encourage that because those things can be invaluable, immeasurable, I can tell you, to help us solve events. And even though I can't explain which one it was, I can tell you specifically that there was a recent serious event in another part of our community that video directly involved like gathering evidence immediately. So it can be extremely helpful. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And so those recent thefts that you referenced won't show up in this report? of
No,
course,
no,
yeah.
those have been happening since, well, since roughly April, middle of April, those type of things. They wouldn't be within the current statistics for the quarter that you're reviewing here in that regard, no.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you for stealing my question, Your Worship.
Sorry.
Because I too have heard this bike thing commented, literally
course.
categorized as a crime wave, and yet, of course, we see that there has been 0 bike thefts anywhere in the RDEK
Yeah.
area A in the last 3 months.
Yeah,
Until,
that's,
I guess, presumably until April.
again, yeah, you're looking at that for the Q4 for us. So we
Yeah.
work in the fiscal year. For us is like April 1st to March 31st.
Right.
So when we represent our stats, that's from basically January 1st to March 31st, or what the statistics you're looking at on those particular example that you have in front of you.
And so, and as well, like just going back through, I noticed that there's 3-year comparative numbers in there, which is really great.
Yep.
It's like, I think that, at least for me going through it, appears that, well, crime is not going down. It's not really going up either. It seems pretty stable across the vast majority of categories. And so that doesn't seem to suggest that it's going up. Is it a case that it's a perception issue because of wider broadcast on social media and things like that, that people feel that there's much greater crime? Or do you have any insight into that?
I think that's an astute observation. I mean, I think certainly social media impacts in any situation as far as like the whatever is going on and whatever's happening can elevate certainly an anxiety within a community. Certainly if you're getting like reposted and you're following certain platforms and you're following certain community groups in those platforms, you're going to be finding that they're repeated. Certainly, I mean, there's another example of a Facebook organizer for a couple of pages here in the room, right? So I mean, and obviously we have our own page, the city does too as well, and they may reflectively rebound it. So if you're attached to all those, you're going to keep seeing the same thing, and that can certainly elevate it. I think the 3-year comparables that we have is a good example of showing that things don't happen typically here. As a historical reference, there's some things that come up in the grass, for example, like for some reason, I believe Elkford in the last quarter was definitely elevated as far as just like simple motor vehicle collisions. What was that? Or was that highway conditions? Was that just general conditions on the road? Was that driving behavior? I think those factors all come into it. When you look at it, it's like, okay, and I think any small increase, especially from 0 to like where we're going to be, and I don't know the number exactly for this quarter, what it will be for theft of bikes and those type of things, certainly it'll be higher, and that'll be something I'll talk about in July, I believe. And you'll see reference to that. But yeah, I agree. I think that does increase it for sure.
Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. You touched on it there, actually. I was just noticing that the MVIs in Fernie over 10,000 kind of had a 0, 2, 3, 8. And I was wondering, is that continuing this year, or like, and just kind of what's up with that?
I honestly think it in my historical reference of being here now it'll be 4 years for me in July. I think it's ebbs and waves, especially with collisions. I think that can matter based upon weather conditions and what events we're having. Certainly, I think the weather wasn't altogether terrific, through the particular like April and into May, as we can see, right? So I think there's certain challenges there. Certainly in the Sparwood area, if you look at those numbers, we definitely felt an increase there, and that was mainly between Sparwood and the Alberta border, and that was based on no distinguishing thing with MOTT or main roads, or you're pushing blame on anybody. It was just the conditions that happened in a very short period of time that can change, as you know better than I do, change conditions very quickly here. And I think that's what you're seeing in those graphs. I mean, certainly is there an elevation in like in reference, and again, if you speak to your point, about like social media and speed and all those things, those are things obviously are very disconcerting for us and we're trying to enforce. And I think that does play into it somewhat, but I think it's more of a collection of the events as opposed to one particular thing. That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Adia Kelly?
I just wanted to mention, Your Worship, that we did have some feedback that there might be some significant noise and stuff going on at the boat launch. And I wondered if you had gotten any of the noise calls were related to that, like the boat launch in the sort of Dogwood area.
Thus far this year, I think from what I recall, I think I've seen a couple files related to bylaw noise and activities at the boat launch, which historically has been the norm. Certainly nothing really outlandish yet, if I can put it that way. Partially because of weather, primarily, right? So we just haven't seen the better weather. I'm sure by Saturday that may change because I think we're looking at 22 or 23 by Saturday. So, yeah.
Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you. Just going back to the MVI's issue in the highways, did the RCMP in any way, shape, or form track volume of traffic?
Do we actually have traffic counters and stuff?
Yeah, I'm just curious if we're seeing more highway issues because we've got more
No, that's not
volume.
something we typically do. We will borrow the information from various locations, whether it's MOTT or whether it's main roads that's doing traffic numbers. I know back in the previous detachment, I was made aware of traffic that would occur like at certain times of the year, which be greatly increased, and that influenced like a number of different factors within the community. One being grocery stores, because the population went from an area of 30,000 to 90. So it's I'm assuming we see probably the same type of thing here. But no, we don't directly go to track those things per se as far as direct traffic numbers. We'll certainly borrow the statistics, and there's a great public website for as you may be aware, through ICBC now, that actually has like the incidents reported to them in a period, I think from 2022, I believe is when it starts. And that's actually really quite fascinating to look at because you get a totality of the picture as opposed to events that are just reported to us. So these are obviously clearly the statistics we have are events reported to us. So it does make a difference.
Yeah, I think it makes a difference on the ICBC one too, in terms, and you touched on it, vis-a-vis things that are reported to them versus things that individuals sort of look after between themselves.
Yeah, and especially now when we get into Mayor, that when you start talking about collisions now and just the aggregate numbers that we have to report below and above, and just the accident reports that we would normally complete for something that was back when I started, under $1,000 for collisions. Well, that's a minor fender bender in a parking lot now, if you're lucky, right? So I mean, it's so now we're over 10,000. So. And some people will choose to go just straightforward, like civil between each other, because they've done what they're required to do and exchange information and gone that way. So yeah, it does make a difference. And I don't think I would say on one hand, they're somewhat accurate, but I wouldn't say they're absolute numbers for sure. I think ICBCs are more truer to what they're actually occurring in my view, based upon what I know, but.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from council on the stats that we see? Well, with that, I'd ask you or give you the opportunity to talk about your policing priorities as you've sort of set them out. And actually, one of the reasons I wanted to set it up this way was just directly related to Councillor Adia Kelly's question about community impacts and things that we're receiving feedback on.
For sure, yeah. So I mean, obviously, since I've been here, we've been very, I believe, engaged with councils across the areas. Obviously, yourselves in Fernie, Sparwood, and Elford. We typically ask at least, obviously in here, I know I've asked the question at times, about priorities and stuff like that. A lot of the interest from you and generally all the other councils that we deal with revolves around traffic enforcement and traffic safety and impaired enforcement, the typical ones that you have. So those have tended to be our fallbacks are incorrect word, but the ones that we go to based upon what the needs of the area community needs are. So that which we get from you and from the other councils. So This year, we have 7 priorities that we deal with, obviously one being impaired enforcement. So that's a focus for every detachment. As you well know, I've explained it several times. Traffic is the #1 file for any detachment in any part of the province, or I would imagine the country and potentially the world, although I can't really speak to that. But I can tell you that it's easily the #1 file for what we get. So that's a big part of that, impaired driving enforcement. We also have a general traffic enforcement thing, which we now track through e-tickets. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the BC government has gone or moved to e-ticketing program. We can still deliver paper tickets, but it's very handy and very fast and very professional looking program that we now use through e-ticketing, which is revolved through our what we call the MRE program, which is how we write up our files. It allows us to go in there and be able to do traffic enforcement through that. So it's the same process. You end up getting a ticket, but it's just a 1-page document that's printed off right in the vehicle. There's a printer in the vehicle now, and it gets delivered that way. So we've gone from numbers, I think in the last year, we were hitting around the 370 mark for tickets issued for that. Which the year before, it all depends on how you count them. Of course, paper files are a bit more difficult to count because they're in 3 different, for me anyway, they're in 3 different detachments and, 3 different things. So we were at about the 500 level. But again, as I believe I've explained before, that will depend upon what we're doing generally as a detachment, as far as like files that we're getting and generating, and also just the general interest of the members that work for you. So, and at some points you can get a regular member in particular one delivered last year over 150 tickets themselves, which greatly inflates the numbers, right? So it's all a balance, but generally that's one of our enforcement items. Again, from what your ask has been, we have obviously police visibility with community projects and events that we attend throughout the year. So that can be school functions, that can be Family Safety Day recently here in Fernie. It can be, literally anything that we go to. We do that via reported watch function. So every shift that we have, the team is required to issue a watch report for what happened during that watch. It details the files to some extent, not a lot, but gives you a basic idea. And also if they've done something, so it allows us to track it that way. And then your own Christina, actually, who loves statistics and loves to track things, she collects that for us and has it ready for us. So that gets a part of the report there. Generically, as part of the provincial program, there's the prolific habitual offender program, the REVOI program, and there's also a new one now called, and I'm going to bastardize this acronym, but it's CPOI, which is the chronic property offender management. That is for areas similar to what you see in regions relatively close to us, but also would be potentially applicable here in the advent of the bike thefts, for example, evolving into identified person that's going to be a continual habitual property offender. They could potentially fall in part of that. So what that helps is you get a tie-in with the three major points, well, hopefully 4, but the justice system being the 4th one. But you have probation, you have us, and then you have obviously the court system, right? And the Crown Counsel, who's going to be putting extra effort and more direct focus on those persons. So their chronic behavior is more protected via release documents, or potentially being held up to a higher standard for release because of their impact in the communities they work in, but also the police that are investigating them. So those are 2 things that we work at. Those are generally the responsibility of our general investigative section. They handle those. We obviously have South Country Patrols, which have been well versed, and I've talked about that numerous times, what we do there. We track that very simply through number of boat patrols. It's a very simplistic format, but we have a lot of our members are boat patrol minded members. And so we're able to generate files off the boat. We do enforcement via federal acts, et cetera. We're just ensuring you have the proper safety gear, and it's reported through that way about how many boats they check or how many boats they check during the time on the water. And we have 2 rather unique things for us. One is is a team or a watch project, which involves a community event on one side. So generally for like a block of work. So the teams that we have 2 teams that work together, and they generally work in a 9 or 10-day cycle. During that time, they're required once a month in that 9 or 10 cycle to have a community focus. So for example, in April, one of the watches, had a focus to be more engaged with in their community event was for the ski hill. So they literally presented themselves up there. You may have seen them there on the Easter weekend if you're a skier. And they were up there having coffee, not like, I'm not talking every minute of the day. We're talking like, they're up there having coffee, they're engaging people, they're doing walkarounds, they're talking with the ski hill staff and stuff, which of course we already have relationships with, but just trying to sort of float around and be more visible in that part of the community. That was done, I think, over a period of 5 or 6 days in that particular one. It was new, so we're still getting used to it. And then we have a traffic event planning. So for example, you probably saw the recent media release involving the mine work that we did, surprise, surprise, with our community partners, the BC Highway Patrol, who was very active in our area over the long weekend. Thank you to them. And also our police dog service team. So we were up at Fort Eaton River and doing basically a vehicle stop, because through the course of investigative work and just general knowledge and communication amongst the team, it became of note that there may be an issue with mine employees leaving work and potentially being intoxicated, whether by alcohol or drugs. That's a big concern. Obviously, road safety, again, the primary concern. So one of the members had come up with the idea to start that process and pick the date. And we checked, I believe, 265 some odd vehicles. And they were all given mandatory tests. Well, I think 2 didn't, but I'm not sure the rationale for that. But anyway, 2 weren't, and every single one passed with flying colors for that. So that's amazing, right? We want to see that. I know, communicating with the mine management and our liaison, they certainly wanted that. I can tell you that much. They were not aware of it. Nobody was aware of it until after it had occurred. So, those are things that a member has come up with, like a constable in the area has come up with to promote. So again, that's more of a specific watch thing that we did. That also became part of their other piece, which is what we call the member development program, which is where we have specific goals for each constable and corporal to engage either in the community during something. So for example, there's one member who's done it for years, Constable Danny Turner. You may know Danny because he's been here for years. He does a after school program called the School of Rock with after school kids in the Sparwood area. He's done that for years. He's a band player. You've probably seen him in the local community with his band playing. So he's done that time. So that's his thing. So in my view, with him, talking with him about that, it was like, well, you should be getting your relating. He would show up in uniform sometimes and be teaching instruments, right, in uniform. What a great thing, right? For communication and, meeting with troubled kids in the community and giving them support. So that became his project. Again, he's something he's already doing, but now he's capturing it. Other members, for example, would come up with drug programs. So drug investigations, their goal is to get X amount of drug investigations started and completed for the year. That's their goal, and they're specific to that. I've already mentioned the program for the mine work, which is Constable Zoni. She had come up with that, and she's progressing with that throughout the year. And then we have a member who a different direction, but he looks after the fitness side of things for the detachment. So his goal is to look at that from a health and safety standpoint and a member wellness standpoint. And he brings that information to me as sort of what benefits and how he wants to increase it. Obviously, we have challenges with detachment space, as I know you know. We created a detachment gym in the Sparwood detachment in one of the bays. We've done that with specifically actually one of the jail cells in the Fernie detachment to make a smaller gym to make that work for us. I know it sounds a little crazy, but that's what we've done because it's the space we have, right? So,
Yeah.
And, so we've done that, and he's focused on that this year. So that's his project, to help build member wellness and give them an opportunity to do workouts. And of course, we support workouts during shifts because, member has to stay fit. And sometimes that's all the time they get is a short, half an hour, 45 minutes, sometimes once or twice a shift block to be able to do that. So we actively support that. And that's one thing that Constable Leo Rusi is doing for his program. So that's a sort of basic outlay of that. I know it's fairly simplistic, but again, has some depth to it too as well. But if you have any questions around that, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you'd like to input other stuff, we're always welcome to 2 things: criticism, feedback, and obviously ideas if you have concerns, right? So.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant. Questions, Councilor Artie Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. I think all those seem like wonderful things. So I'm glad to hear that. you mentioned last year, I think it was, some e-bikes. So hoping that you'll get a chance to be out and about on the e-bikes this year.
Is actually one of the constable's development plans, so to get
Awesome.
engagement with that and do that. So I've actually, I think, already been out. I know they've been out once. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think it's great when you're out. I think it offers a sense of a bit of security to the community when they see our force out and about.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you. We appreciate that. And I would also encourage council to consider supporting your bylaw officer potentially getting a similar type bike, not necessarily the exact bike, but something similar. So we in turn can continue to enjoy and to further that relationship, because certainly that's a big part of what we do as well, as supporting our bylaws. We're doing the same thing with Elkford with their local ATV bylaw. Supporting the Constable Arthur is to be supporting Adam up there in regards to their enforcement of their local UTV ATV bylaw that they've just opened up. So we're working with them with that, and that's something that they're doing jointly. So I'm hoping we can do the same thing here. But of course, it's kind of hard to keep it to an e-bike that can do 45 and you're on a pedal bike. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
I do know one of our bylaw officers would be super game to
Absolutely.
get out on an e-bike. The other one, I'm not
Yep.
so sure.
Yep. I have spoken to them. Yes.
Other questions, comments from council? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Just curious about the your member strength. I know that you had mentioned last time that you were going to be full strength, and I was just curious. I know that it fell through, but do you have any
Yeah.
other lines coming?
Yeah, no. So unfortunately, we haven't identified someone to fill that position yet. It is one of your positions, which isn't, I mean, for me, it's like, I view it one way of being like a strength to have, obviously, the municipal contract for us and that sort of level. On the other hand, like all detachments across Canada struggling for manpower and trying to build that up. So BC recently has taken sort of back their recruiting piece, like BC RCMP has. They've hired someone specific to do that recruiting. Obviously, we're very involved in it. We're doing one actually, well, we did one at Family Safety Day, for example, and stuff like that. We're still vacant in one position. We haven't anybody identified yet, but what the new program is doing for BC is they're taking back their recruiting. So instead of relying upon the national objective or depot, they're looking at it from their perspective. So we're able to be more favorably inclined to support someone who, generally speaking, when I started 23 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible to actually look at someone locally. Like say, for example, if you were an applicant and wanted to go in and you wanted to stay here because you have family here or ties here and you just wanted to come back here, normally that wasn't really supported. Now it actually is leaning towards that, at least regionally, to keep you here. If you want to come back here, we're going to be able to encourage that. It doesn't necessarily guarantee you will come back specifically to us, but it certainly has had positive effect in other areas in keeping people regionally. And by regionally, I mean anywhere from like Preston through up to Golden, which is kind of our kind of zone, although Preston's not part of that anymore. We still kind of include them because we do so much together. But, so that's paid off, I think, already regionally as a detachment to speak to that. And we're able to now just kind of go, well, hey, you're an applicant. Great. And Brad and I actually did this with a CBSA officer recently. We were down visiting them and the crew down there. And when we found out one was an applicant, and the guy thought he was swarmed. He was like, we started talking to him. I was like, hey, well, would you want to come back here? Like, where do you want to go? Do you want to stay in BC? And next thing you know, we forward that up to our district officers and they further that. No joke, further that. And so we ended up getting communication from our district officer relayed back through a blind copy, clearly indicating. So it's definitely changed. And that's fairly recent change. That's within the past, literally 6 months, like say January. So we're hoping that's going to have success here. And certainly we've done that already locally in knowing members or people that are looking at becoming applicants. We've definitely pushed that agenda to try and fill that vacancy. Yeah, we do not sit on our hands and wait for them to do that for us anymore, which is great, I think. So,
Councillor Shoesmith?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. That's really good to hear about keeping more local. I really like that. But not a question, just a comment and really a kudos. Over the past year, I've seen the local force really be involved in the community, doing all kinds of things with the patrols through the bars and all that. And the force was the big draw at the dunk tank on Canada Day for sure. And,
Just mentioning that before. the-
Yeah. and getting
Setting you up.
the cruiser crushed by the monster
Mm.
truck, like that'll go down in history. That was legendary.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's really good that you guys do that level of community policing and be that available in person on foot.
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate that. That's all an account to the members and their effort and stuff. I mean, I know the Lions Derby thing was something that just kind of evolved out of a conversation. And, you know, we were able to get that moving forward fairly quickly and actually have support for it again this year on 2 levels, actually. But I don't know if I've talked to you about that or not. But yeah, it's exciting to be a part. And I think it's great that the community is here, Fernie obviously being a big part of that, that they support us so significantly to get us involved and make sure we're there. And like, you know, you already come up and asked me about Canada Day, right? You know, and that's something we're already messaging about, right? And we know that people love putting us in the drink that way, I guess you could say. And you know, it's a fun aspect of our job and certainly something respectfully that can have a big impact
Mhm.
later on. Just, you know, showing up at you know, events and just when people didn't expect it can be a real benefit, not only to us, but to the community in general, because they see us connected. So, and that's what we want to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Staying on the topic of staffing levels, do we have any, I guess, concerns, for lack of a better term, with having to send members off for World Cup security coverage? Like, is that going to leave us in any sort of a shortage over the summer months?
Great question. Thank you. So the way the Southeast District, which you're a part of for the RCMP, has chosen to handle that is, again, they've regionalized us into our hubs. So not including Creston in this case, but Golden, Invermere, us, Cranbrook, and Kimberley. They regionalized us to the point that we're led for this particular event as a sub-bronze type thing using the ICS you know, management system for those type of events, where our Danco, our district advisory NCO, is kind of leading that push for us. So he's given a specific number. So let's say it's 3 we have like 8-day deployments is what we're working on right now. They give us 3. They need 3 from our region. So we're able to work with the other groups of detachments specifically to, I guess, you know, provide manpower. We've also done that at the PSE level, a little different, like the public servant level. A little different there though, because they're not mandated to do that. They haven't had their leave restricted or anything. So we placed a certain restriction on that total. There's been a couple that have shown interest, but in reality, we're just going to be sending 1 person. But so generally speaking, like we're sending 1, I think the first week of the event. We just got the other weeks coming into it for the weeks 4 to 8, I believe. And so we just got that today actually. So we'll be having a meeting regionally tomorrow where we'll decide on how many we're going to be sending. But typically I've been favorable to what's been going on, and we don't necessarily feel it's going to impact us. It's actually going to help in the sense of like, especially for South Country Patrol with the leave restrictions, not that we want that or the members want it. I mean, like it's 6 weeks of having to not be able to do that in the summertime, right? I mean, who here likes that, right? Nobody likes it. So, but you know, members understand it. And so we're able to do other things as a result. Not only help to boost our South Country patrols a bit, which is nice. And boat patrol is another thing, right? Which is being considered for July in particular, you know, right? From a particular watch for their community enforcement aspect. So those things are beneficial to us that way. But I don't really find it's going to be an overwhelming need so far, thankfully. But great question. Does that help? Does everybody understand what I was talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you very much this evening, Staff Sergeant. That's been very informative. Very much appreciate your time.
If you have any other related questions to the APP or you'd like to add something, please you know, go through His Worship or Michael, obviously. And you know, they can communicate that to us directly, or you're welcome to speak to me too as well. If that's your need is to be that way, that's fine. And we're always happy to hear new ideas and what's happening and what your needs are. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No timer. I like that.
That was
I always got to give a shot about the
very
time.
intentional.
I apologize. Thank you. It's good to
Thank
speak
you.
with you.
That brings us to item 7.1, our quarterly progress update, a report from our Director of Asset Management. Welcome, Ms. Jansen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a short presentation this evening to accompany the quarterly council report in your agenda package. I will walk you through some overall project trends, then take a moment to celebrate a few completed projects, provide a brief update on critical projects and those that have been facing challenges. As the bulk of project updates are from the Engineering and Public Works team, I will invite Director Weir up to present those project updates. And then we'll hand it over to Corporate Officer McKelwee, who will share an update on council activities. And then we'll hand it over for a wrap up to Director Johnston, who will speak to operating metrics in the Planning and Development Services team. So the first quarter of 26, we can see that the majority of staff's project capacity is focused on core service delivery and to maintaining current levels of service across all service areas. As you know, projects are assigned categories captured broadly as critical or non-critical, or important rather, in core and non-core. Just looking at like a 15-month trend here on those project types. So here you'll see that the trend has had a clear signal that project capacity has been focused on and continues to focus on core service delivery, both maintaining current levels of service as well as positioning the organization toward future service sustainability. In terms of resourcing and project delivery, you'll see that the majority of projects are on track to meet project timelines or have been completed within the reporting period. For those projects that are facing delays, while they are downtrending, internal resourcing constraints continue to be the primary driver. This reporting period did close at the same time as Council adopted the 2026 budget, as well as the 5-year financial plan, of which Council approved funding to address several operating constraints, which is anticipated to sort of positively impact project delivery. For the few projects that are facing some challenges, Director Weir will speak to those in a few slides. This resourcing and project delivery trend over that same period doesn't really tell us as clear of a story. What we do see is a consistently low rate of projects facing significant concerns. And as I previously said, a downward trend of projects facing delays. In the next quarter, we are going to be focusing efforts on trying to capture a clearer picture of timelines so that we can highlight some more meaningful a more meaningful trend picture of the planned versus actual completion ratio. And with that, we'll dive into project updates and I'll hand it over to Director Weir. Quickly though, I'll just speak to this one project. Let's celebrate the completion of the Records Information Management Phase 1 project. This project was paused midway through the pandemic and picked up and funded in 2025. And we now have a roadmap for organizational improvement that will shift positively the experience of all of our service delivery areas. So Phase 2 is underway with Corporate Services and Director Neil, and you can expect an update next quarter. So I'll hand it over to Director Weir.
Thank you.
Good evening. So just to, again, celebrate a few complete projects that aren't coming to council for other reasons. The 75% design of the 3rd Street Dike from Highway 3 to LaRue Pond was prepared and finished in Q1 of this year. It's the 4th priority project from our flood mitigation plan. And then an expression of interest for grant funding stream called the BC Disaster Resilience and Innovation Funding Program was submitted just in April here. I know that's out of Q1, but and it's to fund the construction of the new dike and the final half a kilometer of raising of the Mount View Dike, which is kind of continued across a number of projects. And the 100% design would be completed once construction funding was secured. 75% is pretty typical for a grant application.
Sorry, Director Weir, for that 3rd Street Dike, So, a member of the community has flagged for us, there's some environmental concerns, and that stretch of dike, both riparian and, related to the LaRue Pond. Are we, presumably we've considered those impacts and would consider mitigations as we develop that?
I'll let
Okay,
project engineer Line speak to that.
Thank
She's
you.
leading the project.
Good evening. So a lot of the confusion comes from the 2019 flood plan, which highlighted the entire area from 6th Avenue to the river as like this is where the dike is, but the dike itself is much smaller than that and is hugging the road. So those concerns are not there. We are not
Okay.
touching the riparian area. And furthermore, we're going to be ending the dike upstream of the LaRue Pond.
oh, okay.
Tying it into like that upswell of land there. So we
Right.
will not be touching the LaRue Pond.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shoesmith?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. You mentioned it hugs the road, so not where the existing works are, right? So close, because that's hugging the river almost, sort of.
If I may,
Mm.
there is no dike actually here. This will be a new dike for the city and we will be building something. Right now, there's the pathway that hugs the river, but that is not diking infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and just, sorry, Engineer Line, just to further Councillor Shoesmith's question, it'll hug the road, so just visually, currently there's that monument to the internment camp there. Would that essentially be the location of, like, close to the road and then incorporate, as you say, the rise in land there at the far end?
If I may, no, that monument will stay there. That's close to the river. You can see most of the alignment on the picture. I know it's very small.
It is very-
It's very large for me in this. So if you turn around, you can see it better. But yes, so it goes close to the road, hugging 6th Ave, and then across the road. And we're actually going to reorient the road to a 90-degree angle and a stop sign there. And then build it into where the land rises. So that monument is further down the road.
So where, sorry, just for clarity, where the road currently comes around in a fairly gradual curve, it'll be a 90-degree and a stop sign.
Yes, because
Awesome.
yes.
Thank you. Councillor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. Just wanted to get some more details on that grant application and more details, please, if you could.
Do you have any specific questions about
No, I'm just pleasantly surprised. I just want to know more details. That's all.
So typically we have applied for a different grant funding that closed and there was no more applications being taken. So we did find this other DRIF, disaster relief innovation, not infrastructure. Yes, funding. And it is an annual program. And so our expression of interest is like a pre-application was submitted in April. And then they've come back to us and asked for background information. So like our 75% designs and design memos and the cost estimate breakdowns and things like that. So we don't know when it will be evaluated. There isn't a timeline on that, but that they've come back is a good sign.
Thank you.
And if I could just add, unlike most granting applications require a council resolution, which is why you get a chance to see them in more detail. This one didn't for the expression of interest, which is why we didn't make a presentation about the application itself. So that's the difference.
Further?
Just want to confirm, Your Worship, I'm not complaining.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Worship. Flood mitigation plan of 2019. So at what point is this like, is this the last piece of the puzzle or are we getting really close? Like this is kind of exciting.
I wish I could say it's the last piece of the puzzle. I think it's 4 of 9. So we're making good progress, having completed the top 3, and now we're moving on to the 4th. But and they do get a bit smaller as they go down the list. Like the Riverside Dike, for example, would be a somewhat smaller project, but there are still a number of recommended initiatives.
And we did number 8, the Coal Creek bin wall last year as well,
Yeah.
though.
Further?
Yes, I just want to say amazing. It just seems so daunting in 2019 when we looked at this. It was crazy. And so thank you to the team for getting this work done, because water is terrible. Flooding is terrible. So this is awesome news. Thank you.
And then a few more critical project updates. So these are 3 projects that progressed through Q1 under Engineer Lyons' leadership. And all of them here, the design was completed and they were tendered for construction. And actually at next week's regular meeting of council, you'll get a detailed report on all 3 of these projects with the recommendations for award of contracts and construction timelines and budget implications and public notice timelines, and all of that on these 3 exciting projects is coming next week.
Thank you.
The Pine Ave Childcare and Affordable Housing has a project update. And as you're well aware, in the Q1, the city celebrated the official groundbreaking for the new childcare and affordable housing project that would deliver 98 new childcare spaces and 27 affordable housing units. And it's just listed here as a key project that's moving forward. And then we get to the slightly less exciting flagged for concern or challenges projects. So out of the list of the long list of projects, these are the ones that were flagged for having challenges. So as you're aware, the wastewater system compliance design project was flagged following the October submission. The ministry staff completed the pre-screening review of our application, and significant additional work was required to satisfy the regulator. A number of additional assessments. So we have been working through those in Q1. And that the main challenge here is that this will delay our registration. We don't understand yet how far delayed it will be, but we had originally presented the registration timeline as targeting the end of 2026, but now not having yet passed pre-screening, and we're halfway through almost 2026. It's likely that that will push our registration out further, and then that timeline that we had presented on when we would need to construct the upgrades to come into compliance gets correspondingly pushed.
Councillor Rounds?
Thanks, Your Worship. Is the delay because of us or is it because of the province?
Mayor, through to Councillor, it is because the time it takes for us to prepare requirements that they asked for. So we needed additional months of engineering to revise designs, so they requested it and we have to do it. So I guess it's both of us.
Right. Sorry, Your Worship, if you.
Further?
Yeah. I mean, in the report, you're saying we will have a formal update in Q3. Q3 means what? September, October, or sorry, July, August timeframe?
We're actually, we're targeting June or July.
Sure.
We're just preparing the content, and that'll be a more comprehensive update on the whole wastewater projects underway, including this as a component of the complex issues that we're facing, and then also the budgetary implications of this additional engineering work that has sort of delayed the project.
Why does it take 3 months?
So why does what takes 3 months, sorry?
Well, is the scope of work so significant that it actually takes 3 months for you to come back to the council? Like, I'm just trying to understand how much effort and lift is required here.
Sure. So we were planning to come back to council on a biannual basis through this project anyway. So our last update having been December, we were already targeting sort of a June this is what's happened in the project and this is where we're heading. So I would say the frequency of when we were intending to bring our next report was more based on that cadence and providing council and the community an update about the project. The level of effort for the engineering to complete the ministry's requirement is significant, and the more than $100,000 of effort and significant time, 3 months for our consultants to complete the work.
Councillor Audie Kelly.
If I recall correctly, Director, maybe my recall is faulty, our consultant was a bit resource constrained. Has that improved? Like, are we properly resourced so that you can meet this level of effort?
Yes, I'm feel optimistic to say they brought in some additional team members from their Lower Mainland offices to support the project that we've recently been introduced to, and are and all indication is they're delivering on the timelines they said they would earlier in the year.
Further?
If I may, and we are still comfortable that the solution we're advancing is our best option.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Lots in here actually to be happy about. There's lots of good stuff, but on the vein of the wastewater system compliance and design, I read in here that, what is it? Give me a second. The regulator is requesting that we create a system capable of handling peak wet weather flow. I would understand that. I would take that to mean like they want this plant to be able to handle our I&I. Is that possible? Am I reading that right?
Mayor, through to Councillor Shoesmith. It's a little bit more complex. There's components of the MWR legislation that dictate which design flow you're using. So whether it's your dry weather flow or your wet weather flow, or various components. And that comment in the report was specific to the UV disinfection that we already have UV disinfection, and we had reports that justified why it was only up to a certain amount of the flow that we can handle through the UV disinfection. And now they are requiring that the UV disinfection be scaled up to take our full flows. So I hope I say this right, but the gist of the reporting was that when the flows are so high, the 2011 environmental impact study, when the flows are so high, it's more dilute. And so, to meet the requirements in the river, you don't need to treat the entire flow with UV to meet the fecal coliform limits. Whereas now they're saying you have to treat the whole flow with UV. So we'll need to essentially quadruple the size of our existing UV facility, which we weren't expecting to have to do.
Further?
So to be clear, that's not multiplying the entire thing by, 10 or more, just the UV by a factor of whatever it would need to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
the
that
UV
is
by
actually
approximately a
something-
factor of 4.
Okay, so that is something in the realm of achievability then. Okay.
Thank you, Director. One quick question for me, and if I read this correctly, we are also being tasked to determine whether we are a reviewable project under the environmental assessment legislation. Is that correct?
Yes, we've
Okay.
completed that determination, and we are not a
We're not.
reviewable project under
Okay.
the Environmental Assessment Act. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
So the last two here, you're very familiar with. They have come to council a number of times. The CNL trunk main relocation, although the grant application made last year to fund that shovel-ready project was unsuccessful. The increased water and wastewater utility rates as of 2026 and over the coming 4 years are set to fund this project within the next 5 years. And so in the coming budget cycle, council will see that construction slated in one of the next 5 years, following our analysis of the project sequencing with the other high priority projects from the integrated infrastructure capital plan.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. We are fairly confident that in the next 4 years it won't fail.
Yes.
Okay.
barring any extreme fluctuations in construction pricing that we haven't anticipated.
No, not from the cost perspective, but I'm just saying, are we confident that it won't fail
fail.
for the next 4 years?
Sorry, I will change my answer to that. No, I'm not particularly confident in that. This was recommended as a short-term action a number of years ago. So the slope was assessed and deemed to be unstable, and depending on what weather hits us and factors that are well beyond any of our control, I would not say that we have a high level of confidence that it couldn't fail, which is why we've been pursuing it.
Thank you. Councillor Artie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. In light of that, Director, will we continue to keep our eye out for potential grant opportunities that could shorten that timeframe?
Yep, we're always keeping our eye out for any infrastructure funding opportunities that fit with our high, especially if they fit with our high priority projects.
Excellent. Yeah, because it is shovel ready, so the work's been done and we could, if we found something suitable, we could apply on it. Excellent. And I do want to take this opportunity to say to staff that I do appreciate the keen eye that staff has for these things and that you're proactive and always looking. So thank you.
Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. So, Director, can you just remind us what was the last low class 5 estimate that we had on this? This was like $12 million. Do I recall that right?
That's in the right ballpark. I think plus or minus some contingency might have brought the total project cost to upwards of 13 or 14 million.
Right. Sorry, Your Worship, one more thought here. With the utility rates going up, that's not significant, is it? Like it's not going to fund this $12 million project. We still have to go for borrowing, is it not?
With the help of Director Burdett, that was I don't have the math in front of me, but that was the intention of taking all the high priority projects from the Integrated Infrastructure Capital Plan, of which this is one, and spreading out the cost to fund those with the corresponding utility increases over the next 5 years. So as far as I'm aware, that's the intention of the utility fees as calculated.
Mr. Boroneski.
If I can, with the audit and financial plan with the audit and financial report needing to be presented last week, the quarterly financials didn't get onto this agenda and are coming to the next committee meeting. Can I make a point of capturing that question and providing detailed clarity when Mr. Burdett and Ms. Mullen bring the quarterly financials at the next committee of the whole meeting for you? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then finally, the 10th Avenue lift station. So again, as you're aware from previous reports, the design was completed back in more than a year ago now and used to support the grant applications we did in the first quarter of 2025. The reason that this project remains on the flag for concern list in your quarterly update is that it's unfunded and that there's known work ahead from staff in the coming months to integrate our facilities assessments and known costs for facility replacements into our long-term financial planning and make recommendations on where this project fits within our long list of wastewater priorities in the coming years. So that's why it's still on the project list as flagged for concern, not a new concern. And this is also flagged for delays based on staffing capacity. So progress on the core certification is facing challenges due to the capacity in our health and safety function. And currently the resources are being focused around maintaining our essential safety and operations for our regulatory compliance and safe workplace practices. But it does delay our forecasted plan for core certification. And I'll pass it over to our corporate officer to keep going with the updates on council activity.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question about the core certification? Given the constraints that you've referenced, does the fact that it's not advancing put it at risk? Does it set us back, or do we stay at a certain level until we can advance it further?
I'll pass that one over to,
We're currently in the stage of training for the core certification interviews and exams. So it's not a live application where we're waiting for inspectors and the interview process to come through. So it doesn't put us in jeopardy. It is delayed, and it's just delayed because the manager leading that, the individual leading that program has been off on a significant extended leave. And so their backfill's been focused on maintaining and improving day-to-day safety operations rather than leading that special project.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Arte Kelly?
Sorry, Your Worship, if you don't mind, could we just backtrack for a minute to the lift station, Director? As I recall, we had this one in Riverside on our docket, and was the cost about 4.5 million for both?
it sounds in the right ballpark, but I don't want to say I don't have the number at the tip of my tongue. I can look it up for you.
And this one is unfunded? Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Just being aware that plenty of people are watching this at home, I think a quick synopsis of what exactly a core certification is and why we would need one might be useful to the layman.
Fair.
Yeah.
CORE stands for Certificate of Recognition. It's a work-safe certificate of recognition of attaining a specific high bar of standard in terms of your occupational health and safety program. We made the commitment as a municipality to attain that. And while we have significantly improved our occupational health and safety performance to be one of the best rated municipalities in the region, we have not yet completed the Certificate of Recognition certification process. It will provide, while it is an expensive process, it does provide premium reductions as part of the incentive of attaining CORE. And then as you move along, some municipalities and organizations see the benefit in continuing with CORE. Others, rather than doing CORE and continuing with the certificate of recognition, just focus on their occupational health and safety program and their overall experience rating in terms of how they manage their premiums and ensure safety for employees. So it is a commitment that some begin, continue, and maintain. Others begin, attain, and then discontinue, but it is a goal for the city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, Director Weir, thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Now let's turn to updates directly concerning your council decisions. So Q1 of 2026 was an exceptionally busy start to the season for both council and staff administration, with a significant amount of governance, legislative and budget work undertaken during the first 3 months of the year. A lot of what I'm going to go over briefly here with you this evening has already been highlighted or going to be covered later on. But I want to focus on these areas from the perspective of the decisions made by council as opposed to the projects themselves. Staff are present should council have any questions on specific projects. Before providing an overview of the quarter, I would like to note that staff identified a glitch in the reporting measures associated with the Corporate Services Operating Metrics report, and I think it's Appendix C. As a result, several metrics were inadvertently omitted from the original report. Staff would like to correct the record and ensure those metrics are formally reflected moving forward. So for clarity, between January and March 2026, Council actually held a total of 17 meetings. This included 6 regular Council meetings, 2 Committee of the Whole meetings, noting that 1 scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting was cancelled in light of a public hearing in February, 3 special Council meetings, 6 in-camera or closed meetings, and a public hearing. In addition to formal meetings, Council also hosted 5 Council cafes during the quarter, providing additional opportunities for informal discussion and community engagement alongside our annual budget engagement events. So a lot of events for Council this quarter. Throughout these meetings, Council considered a substantial volume of business A total of 31 staff reports were presented to council and 4 delegations appeared before council to provide presentations and requests and community perspectives on a variety of matters. Council also completed several legislative items during this quarter, including the adoption of 5 bylaws and the amendment and adoption of 1 policy. To ensure greater accuracy in future reporting, staff have updated the tracking and reporting measures so these metrics are captured appropriately moving forward. These updates will be reflected in the next quarterly report, so Q2 report, currently scheduled for the August 18th Committee of the Whole meeting, and a copy of those metrics will be added to the set of minutes for this meeting this evening. Council's work this quarter focused largely on advancing core governance priorities, refining our administrative and our regulatory bylaws, and beginning preparations for the 2026 through to 2030 financial planning cycle. Several bylaws progressed through readings and adoption during this period, including bylaws related to our records management, our municipal ticketing, council procedures, and the utility charges. While many of these amendments are administrative in nature, they are important in ensuring the city's legislative framework remains current, operationally effective, and legally sound. A significant portion of council's time this quarter was also dedicated to the budget and budget decisions, including long-term financial planning. As a part of that process, council directed staff to prepare a 2026 operating budget that includes a proposed, a 6.68% property tax increase. In addition to governance and budget matters, council also made several operational decisions during the quarter, of which some of my colleagues have already presented on or will present on shortly. Overall, Q1 reflected a strong start for the year, with council advancing a considerable amount of governance, legislative, operational, and financial work in support of our community and our organisation. That is all from me. Thank you, council. If you have no questions, I will pass it over to the Director of Planning and Development.
Mr. Johnston. Thank you, Corporate Officer.
Good evening, council. I just have a few brief slides tonight. Council will have noticed in the quarterly report narrative document some incremental updates to our table structure to improve year-over-year comparison, as well as some little language updates for clarity. 2 things to highlight in this quarterly report. Mainly the output as a result of the investment from council and the department. So with 2 additional building inspectors, we've increased our building permit output by about 50% this quarter. On a practical level, that's meant a 50% increase in the number of dwelling units we've been able to issue permits for in the same time period.
Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. Kudos, Director. Great job. There was one question I did have from, maybe you might cover this also, but what's the delay with the cloud permit? Like it says that it's a little delayed right now. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
The delay on the planning,
The
cloud permit planning module delivery.
Because I was under the impression that it is well and truly being used and out in the wide world.
I can speak to a portion of this and get Director Jansen's help. So the building permit module is fully operational. That's what folks are using to apply for building permits. The new launch coming shortly is the planning module to apply for development permits, development variance permits, zoning bylaw amendments. So these stats up on the screen, they're all going through cloud permit. It would be the planning applications, which we're still working through the implementation of that module. If that answers your question, I can leave it there, but Director Jansen may be able to speak to where we're at with that module.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, actually, if you can speak to where that module is currently.
Through your worship to Councillor Ramirez, so the phase 2 of cloud permit launch is, I think there's 9 different types of planning applications. So it is extensive, and the team, my team has been working with planning on that to work through all of these steps to launch that. And it came down to a capacity challenge, just competing priorities with the planning team, with the OCP being heavy through the public engagement piece. They just didn't have the resources to apply to that. But we have a launch schedule. June 24th is the launch date for Cloud Permit Phase 2, and the public will see all of the same level of communication and training opportunities coming soon.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you. Just we talk in the report, you talk a lot about resourcing constraints, and you just mentioned it again there. When you say resourcing constraints, do you fundamentally mean not enough bums in seats behind desks, or is it some other, like it's our HR capacity as opposed to another resource that we're lacking?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just referring to the capacity of the existing staff in their roles currently, just with competing priorities.
So further, if I may, so much like with our planning department, if we were to invest in hiring more staff, would we become more efficient and more able to deliver on these projects faster? Or would that be a waste of resources and we're managing with what we have?
Your worship, through to Councillor Hamilton, council did fund an increase in operating funds to increase the resource around business modernization. But for the Cloud Permit project specifically, that resourcing challenge is the planning department specifically and not our team.
Yeah, and just to the nature of the question, it's a little bit like traffic design. You can build more lanes. It doesn't mean you're actually going to move the traffic more efficiently. It's about prioritizing the projects and ensuring that you're working on the right priorities. So thank you. Councillor Adia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I want to go back to celebrating the success of the resourcing. Do we have the oh, we do, or no, we don't. Sorry, the same quarter last year, was that the 7.8 construction value of permits? So 9.467 is a significant difference. Yeah, I think that needs to be celebrated. Kudos to everybody involved, including the other departments that are supporting.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Couple things. This is really good to see. You mentioned hiring 2 more professionals, increased output by 50%. Is that, did you mean to say it doubled, or do you mean to say it went up by 1.5? And yeah, I know what that means, but I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I know. And will that continue to improve as our new inspectors get settled in and trained? And is there any other resourcing that planning or building department could use to keep this trucking?
Thanks for the question. I would say 2 things to the initial question. Firstly, it does take a bit of time to figure out how to optimize new people procedurally, and just making sure we're ironing out how, for instance, if one inspector is not available on the day an inspection's booked, is it simply handed off to another inspector, or do we hold permits depending on who's issued the permits? Just how we work through those nuances takes a bit of time. And the other is that the 2 new inspectors are still completing training. So there's some getting up to speed there. The other question, I would appreciate a bit more time to complete my analysis of the department and operations before commenting on additional resourcing, but I appreciate the thought.
Thank you. Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. Again, all positive metrics here, Director, to Councillor Adia Kelly's point, from $7.8 million to $9.5 million, even in terms of building permits issued from 23 to 35 year on year. Everything is trending in a positive direction. One thing that I am actually curious, and maybe it is not a metrics that needs to be at the council level, but at some level in the organization, do we also actually track how much time it takes for an application to go from submit to issue or something of that sort?
Thanks for the question. Previously, it's not something we would have been able to track very easily, but with Cloud Permit having clear submission dates and review dates, that is something that we're keeping in mind for future reporting, whether done through this process or just internally. So yes, now that we have that kind of technology, we are looking at that.
And I really appreciate that your reporting of the date of submission of the permit you're currently working on is a very useful metric for anyone who's submitted a permit to look at where they may be in the queue. I think that's really helpful. Sorry, further?
Just one more question, Your Worship. Just curious, have you seen any early trends of that dropping or staying same or going up? Just curious.
Thanks for the question. My next slide is on the permit timelines from submission to review. So we can cover that on the next slide. And just an additional comment on the Cloud Permit Planning Module that came to mind during the discussion. Some of the nuances to the planning applications just being different than building permits. Our team has had to spend a bit more time working through how we're going to handle referrals and making sure that legislative requirements are being met as you work through those. Subdivision in particular is just a more complicated process that we've spent more time working through than we might have expected at the outside of the project. So,
Councillor Eddie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Director. I think, or at least I understood that one of the other goals you were working towards was the development of certain service standards. So I just think you're on the right track totally, and I'm really excited about it. I know one of the things we talk about at the OCP level is the metrics and the KPIs, so that we can show those things to the community. So I really want to thank you for the tweaks that you've made, and I'm really looking forward to, as you continue to optimize, as you mentioned, the department. I think you're doing wonderful work.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make the comment I'm thinking. I think, but I'm also hearing underlying other councillors' comments up here is it's been such a profound improvement by supplying these additional resources, by moving to Cloud Permit and getting more people and so on. It's been very dramatic and very positive. And I think we're all looking for more wins like that. Exactly. So, you know, and not that I'm suggesting that you need to come going, oh, by the way, give us all this stuff, but we are looking for those opportunities, right, to make really great differences in the community and area. So I think that's what I'm hearing from the rest of council as well, and sort of underscoring those questions. I just want to put that out there so that as we're going through these reports in the future, that kind of information is coming back so that we can support that.
It's great feedback. Thank you. Okay, this slide is an excerpt from the city website, a table that we update weekly. This is as of April 20th reporting. So at the last quarterly update, I gave council a bit of like a live update where this table was showing about 120 days under that second row, one of our most crucial rows, which is the time for review for single detached dwelling unit permits. So that had gone down from 120 days to what was reported then and now, which is around 30 days. As of what is on the website today, it's at like 23 days. So continues to be in a great place. So we're showing consistency since we first raised this improvement. The only other thing I wanted to mention, which isn't in the report, is just that we have added our building permit statistics reports to our website. So they're very easy to access for anyone who's interested. We do keep hearing people want easy access to that information. So it's not a hard update to make. So that's in place now. And that's it for everything I wanted to highlight tonight.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Eddie Kelly.
Just to mention for listeners, it also helps very much when people's applications are complete with all the necessary items.
I appreciate the comment. If there's one thing that can accelerate and ensure an expedient application process. It's a complete application. So thank you for the comment.
Thank you, Director.
And that concludes the report.
Councillor Ramirez and Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was looking at Director of Parks and Recreation there. I was wondering why the facility asset capital plan is having a delay.
Thank you for the question through council. It's a capacity constraint. The project was basically started with the previous Public Works Engineering Director to sort of define a scope. And it's been slowly worked on with our asset management group to get it to a point where we can basically go to market and get someone to work on it. The question was asked a couple of weeks ago. I've been on holidays since then. But it really does come down to it's myself being influenced by a couple others who's working on it. And it's a busy time of year for us. We've got our capital projects rolling out throughout the summer, trying to get things prepared. But I do see some time being spent on that in the near future. So hopefully that gets along further.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm not sure who on staff would be best served to answer this. So just in the report, we talk about the number of requests for services completed. And I know in the past it's been brought up, the notion of closing the loop and communication back to whoever initially put in the request for service. And I'm curious if we have built that into our system to just respond to the initial identifier or individual who sends through the request for service, that the task has been completed.
Through your worship to Councillor Hamilton, there is some automated emails when somebody submits something, they do get a response back. There hasn't been a wide scale rollout of customer service standards across the departments. However, the communications team is looking at that and looking at some incremental standards as we roll out our new phone system in July. So there will be some tweaks to that, but as Manager Rhodes is not here, I don't have the specifics, but again, there's no standard in place at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I just have a couple notes here, probably for different staffers. I saw in there the sanitary CCTV, that's cameraing our lines, correct? Okay, good. I just wanted to double check. And radon, which buildings do we have to look at for the radon? Yeah.
Thank you for the question for council. So some of the work that was happening towards radon remediation was at the courthouse. So we've had a previous report done by a contractor. It was in 2 phases. We tackled the first phase a couple of years ago. The second phase was just completed last month. And then triggered by council actually a year or so ago was to look into Max Turk and do some readings there. So the way radon readings work is that you develop a trend over a long period of time. So our contractor has set up some devices strategically throughout the building in various different rooms for childcare and whatnot. And then he'll, after that's done for a number of months, he'll provide a report back to us on recommendations if required to mitigate some radon at Max Turk. I don't anticipate there being much discovered there, just with the nature of how the building's built and that sort of thing.
Thank you very much. I was just curious. And then one more question. I recall it was talked about a year or so ago, but on the subject of our water intake, where we're going for the filtration exemption, I was just wondering what the rationale behind that was. Can't quite recall.
Pardon me.
if I may. So next week, I'll be reporting on the UV treatment at Fairy Creek, which is one of the components that we need to have apply for a filtration exemption. Basically, our Fairy Creek water source doesn't have the required amount of disinfection right now. It needs UV treatment on top of the chlorination it already has. So I'll be presenting about the tender of installing that. Once that disinfection is in place, then we can apply for a filtration exemption.
Thank you. I was just wondering what the rationale was, why we would want to, or why that's the preferred route. That's all.
Pardon me. So we are looking to apply for filtration exemption because without that at Fairy Creek, we would require a filtration plant. So we would have to filter that source as well. So as a cost reduction strategy, an exemption using our wells, which that is why they were installed as a strategy so that we would not require a filtration treatment plant at Fairy Creek, using that instead of building and maintaining a filtration plant at Fairy Creek.
Thank you.
Councillor Adia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I had in my notes to ask a question about modeling capacity for the OCP and small scale multi-unit housing. Could we flesh that out a little?
Mayor, through to Councillor Adia Kelly, that's underway and nearing completion, and that's what we've previously talked about as getting a much more granular understanding of our pipe's ability to facilitate new development. So it'll map zone by zone. This sewer shed or this water pipe can provide capacity in these areas, and it'll show these areas don't have any further capacity to facilitate development. So it's they call it a global update of both our water and sewer models, where you add in all the new services and growth since our models were built 5 years ago, and then we calibrated them with monitoring the flows in our sanitary system, and then it spits out what we can accommodate for growth, and that'll support the OCP.
Excellent, thank you. Further, if you don't mind, and also main town valves.
Yeah, and the main town valves was just a small standalone project. It was discovered when we went to tie in the affordable housing, what are we calling it? The 692 3rd Avenue development. We have several mainline valves in this area that are very old and very fragile, and were difficult to facilitate a shutdown of the water in this neighborhood. And so it was just replacing aged valves. And you will hear more on that next week in Engineer Lyon's presentation as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all the good work you're doing in your department as well. I know we kudos to planning, and all of our departments are working really hard. And I'd just like people to understand that sometimes when we talk about departments, that's one person wearing 3 hats. For example, our asset manager has like 3 other roles at minimum. So I just want the public to be aware of that as well, Your Worship, that there aren't all these standalone departments. In some cases, it is people wearing multiple hats and being pulled to different things as priorities change.
Thank you. Councillor Ramdas.
Thanks, Your Worship. I've got 2 specific questions, one with Parks and Recreation and the other one with respect to core. Once again, the health and safety standards. I'll come to the health and safety standards in a little bit here. With respect to Parks and Recreation Director, in light of us, normalizing our fees for passes in the aquatic center, have you seen any change in the numbers between this year and last year? Like, are they like similar number of passes being issued, same number of pool drop-ins and things like that? Has there been any change in the usage levels at all with fees increasing?
Probably a better question for my manager, but I wouldn't say that the amount of passes, punch passes, if you're referring to that, or Elk Valley passes, has been reduced due to the cost.
Okay.
I'd have to compare year over year, whether or not there's a bit of a trend established there with rates and stuff, but our rates remain extremely low.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. And one more question, Your Worship. With respect to the health and safety CAO, like I understand that it's a management information system of some sort that we need to kind of update in order to be certified by WorkSafe BC, something of that sort. And you did say that the health and safety performance has actually improved compared to previous years. And not wanting to put you on the spot here, but would be good if we actually have the TRIF metrics and everything laid out here compared to the previous year. And the reason I'm asking here is, while we may not have gotten the certification, are we still keeping our municipal employees safe? Like that would be my overlying question here.
I'll ask Ms. Neal to provide some additional information as she oversees the health and safety function for the municipality. I'd call your attention just for reference to page 41 of the agenda, where we have some health and safety statistics, but I will take the note that comparing to Q1 last year or providing some year-over-year comparisons would be helpful in answering your question better than we do with our simple quarterly reporting. But you will notice that in Q1 we had one total recordable injury and one first aid incident. That's across a highly complex winter working environment. And while I'd like to see all of those numbers continually at zero and continue to reduce our injury frequency rates and improve our premium, I'm very proud that because of our investment in health and safety, we've gone in 5 years from being at the bottom of the pile of municipalities to being at the top in performance. Due in part to the contributions of the staff who are absent presently and the general practices of our QP and IFF teams and management. But Ms. Neal, do you have some additional comments? Do you know offhand if we continue to trend down year over year or if we are now at a stable low level?
I would have to look at the data. But I also just want to add a note too, that as the health and safety management program builds and we get employee buy-in and participation, that's where the rubber hits the road, because then people are reporting incidents, are helping develop procedures, safe work practices, and better collaborating and providing good information for toolbox talks and safety topics. And the participation rate is what's really started to, we've seen trend upward in the last handful of years.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for our team? Thank you. Very comprehensive. Appreciate all the updates and all the good work that is being done. And certainly it's, really inspiring to see. So with that, we'll move on to item 7.2, 2026 UBCM Convention Meeting Request, a report from our CAO, Mr. Bornowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do not have a presentation to accompany the report. Simply am providing the report for Council's consideration. As you know, the Union of BC Municipalities Annual General Meeting and Conference is coming up in the fall. It provides an opportunity for the municipality to request meetings with ministers and with ministry and Crown Corporation staff as well. The timeline is generally as normal, with registration opening now and closing mid to end of June for ministers, cabinet ministers, premier office, and then August 5th for ministry, agency, commission, and corporation staff. And I would note the only difference to your experience or municipality's experience is that the staff meetings will not be being held at UBCM, but will happen virtually the week before the conference. And so we'll be able to meet with ministry staff in advance of the conference and then ideally take learnings from those meetings to our brief meetings with cabinet ministers, if any are requested, and if we are granted those at the conference this year. I would propose 3 specific topics be considered by council, one being ongoing engagement with relevant ministers, being Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change Readiness, or I'm using one of the older names of the ministry. My apologies. Ministry of the Environment, Ministry of Municipal Affairs, likely to discuss our wastewater MWR application, work that we're doing on that, and work that we're doing on inflow, infiltration, compliance. The Ministry of Transportation and Transit, you may be interested in meeting again to discuss the intersection of the highway and Mount Fernie Park Road, continuing that long discussion we've engaged in, and the importance of transit within the Elk Valley. Again, I'm recommending, particularly in terms of supporting jobs, economic growth, and maximizing the city and partners' investment in densification that we are now doing. And then economic development and sustainability. Feedback from a number of ministries and partners who are engaged at the provincial level is that the Look West strategic plan and the new tourism sector action plan, as well as forthcoming sector action plans across a number of areas, are going to be the driving force. And so if we are aligning our requests around economic development and sustainability, around transit and transportation, around wastewater and capacity with those, we probably have some good opportunities to ensure that we're aligned with provincial policy objectives and can advance our discussions more effectively. With that, I hand it over to you. There is an additional meeting request that we will be formulating at the staff level, particularly around a ministerial order from before the 1980s that suggested the city of Fernie may facilitate electoral area B school board elections during the local government elections. However, the school board bylaws look to the RD to do that, and we do electoral area A and Fernie. And so it's probably a good opportunity. We've got it organized for this year, thanks to our corporate officer, but a good opportunity to revisit that old ministerial order that's not aligned with how we function, how the RD functions, and how the board functions. So with that, I'll leave that to a staff meeting that we'll coordinate separately.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Much in line with kind of the requests and the proposed topics. The other one that I would love for us to discuss and consider is, and I'm not sure which ministry is most appropriate, if it's Minister of Tourism, if it's Minister of Finance, Municipal Affairs, but to really kind of continue and push the conversation around a new funding model for municipalities, particularly resort municipalities that are, we're being required to provide facilities, utilities for the entirety of our tourism population, but we have a very limited residential base to fund that. And so just building on that idea that was brought forward in resolutions in the past about a new funding model and how we can make that better for our community, but there's plenty of other resort communities that are facing very similar issues.
Mr. Borowski.
Thank you, Sir to Council. Excellent and critical topic for discussion. We are working with the Resort Community Collaborative and the Ministry of Tourism to bring the key players from finance, municipal affairs, tourism, and the resort municipalities together at UBSM for that specific purpose as a coordinated effort. Yep.
Councillor Eddie Kelly.
Your list, that was my list, CAO. And I also, to Councillor Hamilton's point, I had also made note of tourism-related MRDT local taxes for tourism communities as well as a topic. I know it's been broached at some board levels with community partners as well, to look at some ability for tourism to fund those things through that type of resource, money resource. So that's great. Thank you. And so just to be clear, in advance of the actual conference, we'll be able to meet with ministerial staff and sort of then fine tune what, your worship and yourself might discuss with ministers.
Mr. Borowski.
The only nuance there is I don't know whether that second part to fine tune what we discuss with ministers is accurate. It may be that, it may be to initiate the conversation so that they can prepare their minister more effectively. It may be to deal with the issue at the staff level. And then we receive a thank you, regrets, or a redirect at the cabinet minister level to someone more appropriate in the eyes of the provincial government. The path isn't exactly clear. Generally, though, the staff meetings are a little longer and you can get into the nuts and bolts of a program in a little more detail rather than looking at the higher level policy objectives with a minister.
Yeah, and we had a similar question, so thank you, Councillor Artie Kelly. Not least of all, is there an opportunity for us to be reasonably strategic, particularly on the wastewater file? And appreciating we won't know this whether we get a minister meeting or not. You know, it depends on availability, but to have our experts present to talk to staff, to make it clear that we're committed and we're making best efforts, et cetera, and then, carry that message forward to the minister to ensure that everybody is receiving the message from the same song sheet, if you will.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this affords us that ability to have staff who wouldn't normally be at UBCM meeting directly with the ministry staff. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Artie Kelly.
Oh, no
Further?
worries, Your Worship. Just a little bit further. I know we were unable to get some of the meetings that we wanted. And I just wanted to touch on, it was sort of my understanding, and I don't know if I misunderstood, but I don't think so. If we had a really critical file that we did want to discuss with the minister and we weren't able to do that at UBCM, we can make alternate arrangements to meet with the minister and get much more FaceTime with them on a more of a one-on-one basis, sending Mayor Milligan and yourself directly to see someone.
You are correct, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Probably the staff thing is, I'm not just guessing, I'm probably just guessing on this, but the meetings prior to the virtual meetings probably have to do with a budget concern as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm kind of thinking from that end, but to have a virtual meeting September 3rd through 8th, that would be, it would be very good. I think it's, that would be awesome. The other thing, like last year, after the event, after our cabinet ministers meetings and stuff like that, I just had a thought, and it was, I was thinking we should reach out to the people, to the community partners, our community partners here, and see if there's anything that's bugging them, such as the library or the chamber or,
Right.
Or
tourism.
all of
Fernie,
those,
et cetera.
tourism,
Yeah.
Fernie, all of these groups that could have something that's really pertinent to them, but we are overlooking.
Mhm.
So I don't know how we would do that at this point, but I think that would be a really important thing to do.
Yeah, fair enough. Councillor Ravenous?
I have an answer to that, Your Worship, liaison officers. We are all liaison officers. In our board meeting, chat with your partner, bring it to the council, and we can slot it into our agenda here. Your Worship, I have a question though. So this year, CAO, apologize, I haven't done UBCM in the last 2 years. I've only done the first year in 2023 rather. This year, the way we will actually have interactions with the minister or with the staff level interactions, is there going to be any change in the way we have developed all these things in light of all the successes and failures in the previous 3 UBCMs? Like, is there going to be anything different, or are we going to try the same path and hope for a different outcome?
I think where we've been successful, we'll follow the same path. Largely, we've achieved quite positive outcomes in terms of raising specific attention and advancing specific discussions on matters relating to Fernie. Not all have been hugely successful, but I think also not all of those keys are held by the minister. Sometimes there just isn't budget for a thing that we want to achieve. I would point at the roundabout. It was identified by a ministry as a solution to Fernie. We've advocated for a decade for the ministry to build it. They don't have money to build it. We are going to have to participate. We're going to have to save money and co-fund it, no matter how many times we successfully meet with staff or the minister and appreciate that signalization and intersection, eventually a roundabout, is an important solution. We're going to have to fund it and participate in some way. But to your point, each year we get a little bit better at developing briefing notes, information packages for council who are attending and the ministers that we meet with, and aligning with their mandates that are set out in their ministerial mandate letters and provincial policy objectives, so that they can see the line of sight between their strategic objectives and mandates and the work we're doing in the ground in community. And I think that's where we've been more effective and what we try to do a little better every year.
Yeah, I think the example, the Mount Fernie Parkway example, is a good one. We've adjusted our message every year because we found ourselves in a position where we had to, but we didn't. We continued to impress upon them the importance of it and the safety aspect of it and the importance for our community. Yeah, so that's a perfect example. Councillor Adia Kelly.
I just wanted to actually give kudos to Councillor Nixon because I thought that was an excellent idea. And I have the same thought that Councillor Ramadas had. As community liaisons to those boards, it would be quite simple for us to maybe we would want to get some talking points or get converse with staff on what we might bring forward, and then talk to those boards and say, hey, you know, do you see gaps? What are we missing? You know, I think that was an excellent suggestion. Thanks, Councillor.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, thank you very much. We don't have council liaisons for some of our environmental groups or our education, our healthcare. We don't have that. We don't have liaisons for that as well. So although I'm happy to go to Tourism Fernie as their liaison and talk to them and see what their concerns are, we still flushing this out. These other community partners would be really good as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective for the broader community. Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Adia Kelly.
I was just thinking of some of the OCP stakeholders.
Yeah.
Because we already have those connections and they're already conversing with our staff. Could we maybe leverage that, Your Worship?
I expect so, yeah. Sorry, Mr. Borneski, did you have a comment?
My comment was the site for requesting these meetings closes at the end of June for cabinet ministers and the premier's office. And so this is the introductory report to get your little gray cells processing on what we might do and what meetings might be best. And so if you're having conversations as councillor liaisons, we can then also reach out to our formally to our community partners. And then if council has further direction or suggestions, happy to facilitate that happening along with our team who are connected with all the community organizations, and see if there are topics that can be brought to council or brought by councillors to the next meeting in early June, where we'll then formalize this list and get to work.
Thank you. And that reference to little gray cells was in reference to their size, not their number, I'm assuming.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the UBCM file? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Borneski and council for the input. We will adjourn the committee of the whole meeting at 8:24 p.m. and roll immediately into our special meeting of council held on May 19th, 2026. Once again, Kisukukit. We acknowledge the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleat First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Kanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleat and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. And I will call the special meeting to order at 8:25 p.m. and ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that the agenda of the May 19th, 2026 special council meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Shoesmith, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And once again, I'll invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on this meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. A speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to state their full name and community of residence. Does anyone in the gallery wish to speak to this agenda? This agenda specifically to this special meeting. There are no minutes attached to this agenda, so. Anybody online? Seeing none. This moves us to item 10.1, engineer line. Repeal of bylaw number 2546, 2026, and initial readings of Cedar Avenue.
Good evening again. I'm here to fix a mistake by repealing bylaw number 2546 and asking for consideration of the 3 readings of bylaw 2553. When I wrote the first bylaw, I described the road incorrectly, describing it using the road closure plan instead of the plan that dedicated the land as road. That has been fixed in the new bylaw and must now go through the approval process again to close the sections of road in order to exchange the lands with the Ministry of Transportation and Transit to fix the encroachments on Cedar Ave and Bossio Road. And again, only the property lines are moving. The road itself is not changing at all. To try and limit rework with these readings, the bylaw will go out for public notice again, but be paired with the notice to dispose the property as required by the land exchange at the same time. Staff will also follow up with the local district office of MOTT for approval of this new bylaw, which we received with the old bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarity, engineer line, effectively nothing changes. It's just correcting a citation error.
Correct.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Shoesmith?
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I can't wait for closure on this. I actually went to look up the bylaw. I couldn't find it actually, 2546. So I was wondering what was going on, but no, this is good. Awesome. And just obligatory reminder, as you've mentioned, no road is being closed.
Sorry, microphone. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Russia. I was just asking, are we making 2 motions, one to repeal and one for the new one, or is it just one single one? Just as per the recommendation, it just looks like we're just making the first, second, and third reading motion. Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Yep. That's what's in front of me here. Yeah. Councillor Shoesmith?
Oh, I would just move.
Okay, well, I'll read the motion, the resolution rather, that council give Cedar Avenue highway closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw number 2553, 2026, first, second, and third reading. Moved by Councillor Shoesmith, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any further discussion? Councillor Hamilton?
Just for clarification to Councillor McIsaac's point, I don't hear in that resolution that we're repealing previous one. So I'm just curious from a procedural.
Officer?
Through to Councillor Hamilton. So the procedure, once it's adopted, will automatically repeal the bylaw before it. You'll see in the repeal section of the bylaw, it specifically says that in there, so that once we've adopted it, when it comes back after public notices, it will be repealed automatically. Yeah.
Supersedes.
Supersedes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, engineer line. So item 16.1, resolution to close. I'll need a mover and a seconder that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 90 sub 1 sub G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And we will move